I can still see their angry faces as they stormed the manor. But I was dead before they found me. And the letter was on its way.
And welcome back to more Darkest Dungeon. This is episode 27, week 65, getting underway. And we got a real doozy of an episode in store for you, Devatron. Now, I wasn't intending on this being a doozy of an episode or a nail biter or anything like that. Rather, all I was doing was trying to go back and do some veteran level dungeon with a Shieldbreaker in order to acquire the 5th journal entry for a Beautiful Thing Shieldbreaker backstory. So you may recall last episode we took a Shieldbreaker into a veteran level dungeon to do the Brigand 12-pounder boss in the Weald, but we were unsuccessful at getting the nightmare flashback encounter to trigger. Again, it's only a 50-50 shot, so what was most unfortunate about that is that once we finished the dungeon and that Shieldbreaker got her experience, she became level 5. The only other Shieldbreaker I had in the roster was also already level 5, which meant that I couldn't take them into veteran dungeons anymore because they were too high a level. So accordingly, we were going to have to recruit a new Shieldbreaker, level her up, and then do veteran content until we got the nightmare flashback encounter to trigger. So obviously we were able to accomplish that in this episode, and you might say that's the good news, and it is good news, but well, the bad news is I chose to do it with only a level 1 Shieldbreaker, okay? Now, I can't quite remember exactly why I didn't spend more time leveling up a Shieldbreaker to make this run easier, but I can imagine it was any number of reasons that caused me to do so. For example, with a roster that is predominantly made up of heroes that are level 5 and above, the available quests and dungeons each week will mostly be champion level, okay? So there are plenty of weeks that will go by in such a circumstance where you don't even have a veteran dungeon offered for you to go into. And second, and more important, and this is probably more of what happened to me, is the fact that you're not just taking a Shieldbreaker into a veteran dungeon, but you're taking a party into a veteran dungeon, right? You need 3 other heroes that can also enter a veteran dungeon and that can form a competent party, right? With a healer and a stress healer, etc. So in looking through my roster, it was probably the case that the few heroes I had left that were the appropriate level to enter a veteran dungeon and compose a competent group with this fresh Shieldbreaker recruit was very small. You know, I probably had very little to choose from, and if I spent too much more time letting weeks go by, there was a good chance that those few I had left that fit the bill would end up doing other quests, and then they too would be too high a level to enter a veteran dungeon. And this leads me to the next bit of bad news, which is our healer, our Vestal there in the 4 slot, is also level 1. So evidently I didn't have any appropriate healers available that could fill out this party and enter a veteran dungeon. So we're taking not 1, but 2 level 1 characters into a veteran dungeon. So because of that, the group is going to struggle somewhat, which in turn makes the fights last longer, which in turn made the episode longer and a little bit more of a nail-biter. However, we also just got some bad luck. We ended up getting a lot of encounters. I don't remember doing a dungeon and having to do this many fights before completing the objectives, but again, that's just random luck. Now on the bright side, we have a very strong leper in rank 1, and he can just chew through enemies in here. And we have a very strong stress healer, the jester in rank 3, who will help keep these low-level characters' stress level to a minimum.
Excise the fungal tumors, and the land may yet live.
Alright, so here we go into the Weald for detoxify the corpses. We have to find 3 infected corpses, Devatron.
Mind that such missteps are the exception, and not the rule.
Alright, so one thing to notice right away is the stress bars on both the Shieldbreaker and the Vestal. Because they are technically too low a level to be in this dungeon, they just come in and they're already stressed out. Alright, so we're going to have to work hard very soon to reduce that and keep it to a minimum.
Masterfully executed. Destroyed. A decisive pummeling. Precision and power. Monster's size has no intrinsic merit, unless inordinate exsanguination be considered a virtue.
Alright, so not too bad. Kind of tough getting a giant first pull, but we managed through it.
As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Unnerved, unbalanced. devastated. Inspiration and improvement. Victory. Perhaps a turning point. A momentary abatement. Devastating blow. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. These nightmarish creatures can be felled. They can be beaten.
Alright, so there you can see it. Tough fight, long encounters, Devatron.
As the light gains purchase, spirits are lifted, and purpose is made clear.
Alright, so here we get a lucky scouting check, which is very fortunate. And it's a critical check. There's a secret room up here. As for the fight, you can see a lot of the group's weakness. The Shieldbreaker doesn't hit that hard. Small health pools, so you have to be very careful about each hero's health. And most of all, our vessel just doesn't heal that much.
The light, the promise of safety.
Furthermore, it doesn't help that we get some bad luck, which is part of the game, but still, we got surprised, which shuffled our order. And then twice, the giant used confusion spores to shuffle our order. So whenever that happens, even with a really strong group, you're in for some trouble.
Gathered close in tenuous firelight and uneasy companionship.
Okay, the fangs, they feel ever nearer. There's the customary bark from the Shieldbreaker informing us that we will get a nightmare encounter. And as for camping right now, you're probably wondering, whoa, what are you doing? This is too soon. Well, a couple reasons I chose to do it right away. First of all, I noticed on the map, because we got that scouting check, that the first of the 3 infected corpses is in the next room. So I knew that we were going to have 1 of 3 done, and I didn't know where the other 2 were, but knowing that one of the three was going to be done really soon, I felt confident that we could go ahead and burn the camp. Second, as for the encounter itself, the nightmare, I wanted to do that sooner than later because I didn't want to get too deep into this dungeon and have our party really ragged and out of supplies and beat up and then try to do the encounter. You know, I wanted to try to do it when we were as strong and fresh as possible. And then third, remember, camping gives us buffs, so it's going to help us not only get through the encounter, but get through this very tough dungeon the rest of the way, at least for 4 more battles or 3 more battles after the nightmare.
The match is struck. A blazing star is born. Sand and serpent choke out hope of wholesome reverie. Such a terrible assault cannot be left unanswered. A time to perform beyond one's limits. The ground quakes. Is the weapon that cuts on its own. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden.
I am lodged in a jumble of corpses and wreckage. My arm is pinned. The serpent appears silently from behind a rock, tongue tasting the air. The bite is quick, the venom slow. It runs cold in my veins, inching up my arm, forcing me to make a terrible choice. Alright, so very close call in there. Our Shieldbreaker almost to 100 stress, which would have caused us to fail the encounter.
Such a burden of finery risks life and limb.
And as for our haul, the important bits anyway, 2 Aegis scales, the journal entry, of course, and then the Shieldbreaker trinket, Cuir Bouilly, I think is how you say that, and I believe it's French for boiled leather. It's a very nice max hit point increasing trinket for the Shieldbreaker. So, as for our progress, at this point I was actually feeling pretty good. We successfully completed the Nightmare encounter. And yes, we're a little beat up, but I know that the first of the infected corpses is right around the corner. And I'm feeling like, you know, we're going to be okay. We're buffed, and that'll help. Our 2 low-level guys are both blighted, and we are out of anti-venom. So that is going to hurt, but yeah, I was feeling like we could do this. We just needed to press on and get a little lucky.
Eradicated. Uncertainty, the birthplace of dread. Cursed champion falls.
Alright, not too bad. Was able to recover some stress and health there. However, getting 3 guys with the horror debuff was kind of unfortunate.
Singular strike. Annihilated. The slow death. Unforeseen. Unforgiving. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden. Formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
All right, not too bad. Wasn't able to stall and recover there at the end because the little guys kept blighting our first two ranks, but we got through it and recovered somewhat. Stress levels are looking great. And here is the first infected corpse, so 1 of 3 down. And as a bonus side effect, using the potent salves to detoxify those clears up an inventory slot. And hey, what do we have here, Devatron? The second infected corpse. So this was huge. This was super good luck. 2 of 3. All we need to do is find the last one, and we're out of here. Easy, right? Keep in mind, though, that we're only at minute 28, and the episode is over 50 minutes long. So, yeah.
Hacks laden with loot are often low on supplies. Of war can be healed, but never hidden.
Okay, one thing that I need to talk about that I've been putting off thus far is the title of the episode, right? You may have noticed it's A Beautiful Thing, Part 5, which makes sense. We're here with our Shieldbreaker getting that 5th journal entry, but it's also titled Journal of Darius, Highwayman. And what that is the backstory journal series for the Weald.
Finding the stuff is only the first test. Now it must be carried home.
Now, I know I haven't done one of these in a while. If you recall, we had done the journal series for the Ruins, the Cove, and the Warrens, but then we got a little sidetracked. We did the Miller, the Shrieker showed up, and we had to go off and deal with that. But now we're back on track, and we're back in the Weald, and it's the last journal series of the 4 main dungeons. Now, if you were paying attention, you might have noticed that as we made our way through the veteran round of the main dungeons, I always read the journal series for each dungeon area on the second time through for the second boss, right? So in the Ruins, it was during the Prophet run. In the Cove, it was during the Drowned Crew run. And in the Warrens, it was during the Flesh run. So accordingly, I should have read this journal series during the second boss here in the Weald, which we just did, which was the Brigand 12-pounder, but alas, there was no journal series. So there are a couple of reasons that I decided to put off reading this journal series until this episode, instead of doing it last episode during the Brigand 12-pounder. First and foremost, the last episode was just such a fast, clean run, straight to the boss. We crushed the boss. I could have fit in the journal series over all of that, but it would have been tight. I think this is the longest of the journal series. It has 6 entries in total, whereas the others only have 4 or 5. So it would have been tight, and it would have felt a little bit, I don't know, cramped. And that leads right to the second reason, which is this episode, for reasons I've already explained, ended up being really long, you know? So having some extra kind of backstory, color, fluff, and whatnot would really help fill this episode out. Because let's face it, I can only say, all right, well, we just got through another fight, and this is what happened, you know, so many times. That just gets pretty boring pretty quickly. So this extra long episode was just much more welcoming for something like a long journal series to be read over it. And last, and perhaps this is just coincidence, but hey, I'll take it. If you think about this episode, it's really an extra episode. We're not hunting down a boss, we're not doing any DLC, we're not advancing the main storyline. Rather, all we're doing is going after this Shieldbreaker backstory journal entry, which, you know, we like and we want to include. So I don't want to say the episode is unnecessary, but it is a little superfluous, right? Accordingly, since we are hunting journal entries, why not use this episode as the episode to present the journal series from the Weald and make it, you know, less superfluous, right? Have this be the journal entry backstory hunting episode, if you will.
As victories mount, so too will resistance.
All right, so enough preamble. Let's get to the journal series already, Burner, right? As usual, as you can already tell, I've ducked the audio, and I'm having to narrate over combat and whatnot. And like I've said the whole way, I apologize for doing that, but it's the only way to fit in these extended voiceover segments. So here we are with Journal of Darius, Highwayman.
The twisted faces of the damned, piled high and cloaked in malice.
Day 1. Rare are travelers on the roads this autumn, and rather than starve, I pressed my last coin into the hand of one who dealt in rumors and shadows. Ravens carried cryptic notes that there was a person, or persons, who was pledging coin for services best left unmentioned in a hamlet I had never heard of. I am packing to leave immediately. Day 4. The road to this damn hamlet was a tricky one, both to find and to travel. When it revealed its ruined face, I swore I'd never seen such neglect. Some buildings collapsed, and uncaring residents fidgeting uselessly. I went swiftly to the tavern. Others with similar interest had gathered there, and I was assembled into an expedition. We leave at first light on the morrow. Day 6. As we traveled from the hamlet, an eerie dread grew. We all felt it, but did our best to shrug it off. Sleep was difficult until Raven, one of my companions, passed me a bitter concoction. The most devout of us, Therion, prayed softly for our safety. Superstitious, but well-intentioned, I suppose. I am already falling asleep. Day 7. We tangled with some unruly louts. Raven called them cultists. They were ferocious, but clumsy.
The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden.
Day 8. Moira has been afflicted with sickness. It must have been some rotting air from a coffin she insisted on piercing with her spade. As terrible as this place is, I know I will not fall for any trap nor crazed idiot. I wager my lucky coin on it.
Impressive. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
My end. I scrawl this victim of cruel fortune, who took me up on my wager, for I have lost my lucky coin, and I now lie helpless as my blood flows swiftly from my ruined body. My fingers are cold. It was no trap nor raving cultist that sealed my fate. We were ambushed by strange, undulating shapes, two small entities that I cannot hope to describe, and a third, much larger beast. Poor Moira was crushed into a pulp as Therion defended her. He soon lost his arm, and his wits left him. "Shambler! Shambler!" he kept shrieking as Raven yanked him to flee. I tried to play hero, to buy them a few moments. Blew away one of the smaller monsters. Last shot. Then smashed into the wall. The big one. Maybe they made it out.
passion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. As the ghoulish collection scatters, the rats prepare to feast. Ghoulish horrors, brought low and driven into the mud.
Alright, so just like the other journal series from the main dungeons, this one a very harrowing account. Yet another failed expedition from the hamlet, and what appears to be the second of these four journal series that deal with this mysterious otherworldly creature known as the Shambler.
Nature herself, a victim to the spreading corruption, malformed with misintent. Injury, palpable fear. Sedated. Exposed to a killing blow. The blood quickens. This expedition at least promises success. In Radiance, may we find victory.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed Journal of Darius, Highwayman, as I've hoped you've enjoyed all the journal series from these four main dungeon areas.
Glittering gold, trinkets and baubles, paid for in blood.
Meanwhile, the fighting progresses in our current quest here. The last infected corpse nowhere in sight, but It can't be much longer because we're running out of dungeon.
Quickly the tide turns. Mortality clarified in a single strike. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. Ringing ears, blurred vision, the end approaches. Prodigious size alone does not dissuade the sharpened blade. A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
Alright, we got through it. Think we could get a scouting check? Nope. So I guess this third infected corpse is just all the way in the end of this dungeon, Davatron. Oh, at this point I was going crazy. I mean, we successfully got through the nightmare encounter so quickly, and then we got the first and second corpse done just bang bang. This so should have been over by now.
Cruel machinations spring to life with a singular purpose.
And there, that was a scouted trap, and I knew it was there, and I was walking up to disarm it, but I guess the game just thought I went one step too far. So yeah, I was pulling my hair out, but thankfully, guess what? Yes, the final infected corpse, Devatron. We are done. Woo! Easy run, Dev. Easy run.
Good fortune and hard work may yet arrest this plague.
Well, I don't know what he's talking about, good fortune. We didn't have much there, but wow, what a marathon. Sorry it ended up being so long, but we got through it. We were kind of asking for it, right? Taking 2 level 1s in. But not a bad haul. Over 11,000 gold with that gemstone from the collector. 6 resolve XP for everybody. Mercurial, meditator, whatever. Scientific is bad. We got to get rid of that. Darkest dungeon. Maybe we should say longest dungeon, Devatron. It all worked out in the end. A beautiful thing, 5 of 7. Journal of Darius, Highwayman. All the veteran content down. We'll see you in the next episode.